Welcome in, everyone, and a very special welcome to you, the learner. It is Saturday, February 28th, 2026, and we're just really glad you decided to carve out some time for this deep dive.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here.
I want to start our time together by throwing a question your way, and I genuinely want you to just pause and think about the mechanics of your own digital life for a second.
Yeah.
When was the absolute last time you went to Google, typed in a multi-word query, hit enter, and then, actually scrolled down to click on a standard plain old blue link to find an answer?
It's been a while, right?
Right. Or think about your commute. When was the last time you manually sifted through a music directory or a podcast library to discover something new, rather than just letting your audio app seamlessly transition you into the exact right track for your current mood?
If you are actively participating in the digital ecosystem in 2026, I'd wager that trying to recall those manual behaviors feels a bit like trying to remember the last time you used a rotary phone.
Yeah, exactly.
The friction is entirely gone. But so is the agency. And that is the fundamental premise we are unpacking today. The internet has undergone this massive seismic architectural shift. We've transitioned from a web that we actively manually browse to a web that is comprehensively, invisibly curated for us.
We're not the navigators anymore.
No, we are the passengers, and artificial intelligence has firmly taken the wheel.
And what a ride it's turning out to be. To map out exactly where this car is heading, we have pulled together an absolutely massive stack of sources for you today. We are pulling academic research on journalistic gatekeeping from MDPI and Dev Discourse to understand how we get our news.
Which is fascinating data.
It really is.
Yeah.
We're also tearing into some incredibly dense engineering papers straight from Spotify research, alongside industry data from ArtistRack to figure out what's happening to our music. And to tie all of this to the broader economy, we are bringing in cutting-edge 2026 marketing and SEO blueprints from ALM Corp, Vertical Response, Spearpoint, and PodcastVideos.com.
It's a huge stack. But every single one of these papers, the studies, the blueprints, they are all pointing toward the exact same reality. We have entered the era of the new gatekeepers.
The new gatekeepers. I like that.
Yeah, because, 10 years ago, an algorithm was really just a digital filing clerk. It sorted information based on straightforward keywords or chronological timestamps. Today, these algorithms are interpreting your intent. They are analyzing your situational context, like the time of day, your location, your recent behavior, and they are literally constructing the reality you interact with on a moment-to-moment basis.
Which means understanding these systems isn't just a hobby for software engineers anymore. If you are listening to this, our mission today is to give you the ultimate cheat sheet to the 2026 digital ecosystem.
That's the goal.
Maybe you're a creator trying to figure out why your audience growth suddenly flatlined. Or a marketer trying to get an email delivered without it vanishing into the void. Or maybe you're just, a curious person trying to understand why your personalized news feed seems to know what you're angry about before you even wake up.
It's a very real feeling.
It is. We are going to decode exactly how AI is rewriting the rules of discovery. And spoiler alert, by the time we finish, you will see why the most advanced technological systems in the world are ultimately forcing us to become more raw, more unpolished, and more authentically human.
The irony there is quite beautiful when you look at the data. As the machines master the art of synthesis, the synthetic perfection they generate loses its value. But we can't fully appreciate the value of that human element until we understand the cold, hard mechanics of the machines themselves.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the death of the blue link is really the earthquake that triggered all these other tsunamis. Let's look at the data from ALM Corp. It states that right now, nearly 60% of all Google searches are zero-click.
60%.
If I need to pause on that because it sounds almost contradictory to the entire concept of a search engine. 6 out of 10 times someone asks the internet a question, they never actually visit a website.
That is correct. A user speaks or types a query, and the generative AI layer, whether that is Google's AI overviews, ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, it synthesizes the answer directly on the results interface.
Right on the page.
Exactly. The user reads the paragraph, gets what they need, and closes the app. So the traditional SEO battleground where companies spent billions fighting to be the #1 blue link on page 1, it's effectively a graveyard. Ranking first doesn't matter if the user never scrolls down to see the links.
So if SEO is dead, what are all these digital marketers and content creators actually doing in 2026? The ALM Corp blueprint talks about GEO, generative engine optimization. But I want to push back on this a bit. Is GEO just a rebranded buzzword for SEO, or is the actual mechanical process of getting found genuinely different now?
It is fundamentally different. SEO is about convincing an algorithm that your page was relevant to a specific keyword so it would display your link. GEO is about positioning your data so that an AI model chooses you as the authoritative source material when it is actively writing a response.
Oh,
We have transitioned into what economists are calling the answer economy. When you ask a modern AI a complex question, it doesn't just fetch the most popular web page. It acts as an autonomous researcher. It pulls fragments of data from dozens of sources in real time, synthesizes them, and generates a bespoke answer.
and if you aren't part of that synthesis,
You're invisible. If your brand or your content is not structured in a way that the AI can instantly comprehend and trust, you are entirely invisible in the answer economy.
the ALM Corp paper mentions two specific things you need to survive this: entity clarity and schema markup. Now, as someone who loves a good narrative, schema markup sounds like the most boring technical jargon imaginable. Can we translate this? What does it actually mean to give an AI entity clarity?
Let's use an analogy. Imagine the internet is this massive, incredibly chaotic library where millions of people are dumping loose pages onto the floor every second. In the old days of SEO, you would just write the word marketing at the top of your page in big, bold letters and hope the librarian noticed it.
Right. Just keyword stuffing.
Exactly. Schema markup is the equivalent of attaching a highly standardized, machine-readable digital ID card to your page. It doesn't just say what the page is about. It explicitly defines the relationships. It tells the AI, this is a corporation founded in this year by this person, offering this specific service with this exact pricing structure.
So you are basically spoon-feeding the AI the exact variables it needs to populate its own answers. You aren't giving it something to read, you are giving it data to ingest.
Precisely. AI systems crave structured, unambiguous data. But more than just structure, they crave unique, proprietary data. If you just publish a generic blog post about the top 10 marketing tips, the AI has absolutely no reason to cite you.
Because it already knows all the tips.
Right, it has already ingested 10 million similar posts. It can hallucinate that answer on its own.
This brings up this SoFi example from the ALM Corp research, which I thought was brilliant. If I ask a generative engine, what are the current fuel price trends in the Midwest, and how is that impacting consumer credit? The AI almost always cites SoFi as a primary source. Why? Because SoFi didn't just write a blog post.
No, they built a database.
Exactly. A proprietary, regularly updated database of gas prices cross-referenced with regional spending habits. They have a data set that literally does not exist anywhere else.
And that is the crux of generative engine optimization. In a digital ocean flooded with infinite AI-generated generic content, proprietary data is the ultimate magnet. If you offer a unique dataset, original research, or structured information that the AI cannot simply scrape from a Wikipedia page, you become the authoritative citation. The AI is forced to pull from you to generate a competent answer.
And this shift isn't just contained to browser windows on our laptops. The sources dive heavily into what is happening with the devices in our pockets, specifically Apple's massive overhaul. If you are listening to this on an iPhone right now, you are carrying around Project Campos, which is Apple's codename for Siri 2.0.
Yes.
And Siri 2.0 is powered by Apple Foundation Models version 11, which are deeply integrated with advanced Gemini architectures.
Yeah.
This is not the Siri of 2022 where you asked it to set a pasta timer and it accidentally called your mother.
Definitely not. The leap from legacy Siri to Siri 2.0 is a leap from simple command and control logic to long-form, multi-turn agentic capabilities. Siri is no longer just a voice interface for your apps. It is a localized intelligence layer that sits on top of your entire digital life.
Let's walk through a hypothetical scenario based on ALM Corp data, because this completely blows my mind. Let's say I'm driving to work. I don't want to fumble with my phone. I just say, hey Siri, summarize that new tech podcast deep dive about space science, and tell me if the hosts discuss the new foundation models. And if they do, email the summary to my team. What actually happens in the background?
In that scenario, Siri doesn't open Apple Podcasts. It doesn't show you a link. The AI leverages its integration to pull the transcript of that audio. It reads the entire document in milliseconds, identifies the specific semantic concepts you asked for, space science and foundation models, synthesizes a cohesive summary, reads it back to you over your car speakers, drafts the email, and sends it to your team.
Wow.
The user achieved a highly complex, multi-step goal without ever touching a screen, opening an app, or clicking a single link.
Which is an absolute utopia for the user. It's frictionless magic.
Yeah.
But if I put myself in the shoes of the person who spent weeks researching, recording, and editing that space science content, this is an absolute nightmare.
It's terrifying for them.
If Siri intercepts the user, reads the transcript, and gives them the answer. I don't get the download. I don't get the measurable click. My sponsor doesn't get their ad read heard. How on earth do creators and businesses survive if the AI intercepts the audience before they ever arrive at the destination?
That is the existential crisis of the 2026 digital economy. And it is why ALM Corp insists that the fundamental KPI, the key performance indicator, has completely changed. Clicks are becoming a secondary, almost vanity metric in many sectors. The new metric is conversation share.
Conversation share. I saw that term in the research. How do you even define that? Is there a dashboard for conversation share?
It is complex to track, but the concept is straightforward. Conversation share measures how often your brand, your proprietary data, or your original concepts are actively cited, discussed, and synthesized by these AI assistants across millions of user interactions.
Because you're tracking citations, essentially.
Yes. You might not get the direct website traffic, but if Siri and ChatGPT are constantly telling millions of users that your company is the definitive answer to their problem, that builds an unparalleled level of ambient, authoritative brand equity. It is a shift from direct response marketing to algorithmic brand saturation.
You are basically trying to achieve inception. You want the AI to plant your brand in the user's mind so seamlessly that they just assume you are the industry standard. I see the business value there, but I want to pivot. Handing over this much synthesizing power to an AI has consequences that go far beyond marketing KPIs.
Very much so.
Because if we rely on an algorithm to read a document and summarize the important parts for us, we are essentially handing over immense editorial power to a machine. The AI is deciding what context is crucial and what nuance is expendable. Which leads us directly into the academic research from Dev Discourse and MDPI regarding how AI gatekeeping is altering our reality and the news we consume.
This is where the mechanics of curation intersect with sociology and civics. Historically, the flow of information was governed by human beings. If you picked up a newspaper, a human editor or a team of editors sat in a room and made conscious, deliberate decisions. They decided which geopolitical event was the front page headline, which local story was relegated to page 6, and which press release was thrown in the trash.
They acted as the gatekeepers of public attention.
Exactly.
And we could argue endlessly about the biases of those human editors, but at least we knew who they were. Today, the Dev Discourse papers highlight that the traditional human editor has been largely sidelined. The primary curators of global information are the algorithms powering Google News, the For You feeds on X, the personalized dashboards on Facebook.
I think countless other aggregators, yeah.
Right. But unlike a human editor who, theoretically, might weigh civic duty or journalistic integrity or the public's need to know, these algorithms have a fundamentally different set of primary directives.
Yes, the models are mathematically optimized for 3 distinct variables: engagement, speed, and scale. They are designed to keep the user on the platform for as long as possible. And this introduces a vital theoretical framework from the MDPI research called gatekeeping symmetry.
Let's pause on that term. Gatekeeping symmetry. What are we looking for symmetry between?
We are measuring the alignment between the algorithm's output and traditional editorial norms. If an AI aggregator prioritizes well-sourced, fact-checked, proportionate reporting, essentially mirroring the values of high-quality human journalism, that is considered symmetric gatekeeping. The machine supports the values of the institution.
I think I can guess where this is going. What happens when the machine does the opposite?
Then you have asymmetric gatekeeping. This occurs when the algorithm consistently amplifies sensationalism, outrage, cognitive bias, or outright misinformation, simply because those elements are statistically proven to generate higher click-through rates and longer session times.
And the paper suggests we're leaning toward the latter.
The academic consensus in these papers is that we're sliding deeper into an era of profound asymmetry. The pursuit of user engagement has structurally decoupled from the pursuit of objective truth.
And what terrifies me about this, and this is a huge theme in the MDPI paper, is what they call the shifting locus of control. Let's say it's 1995, and a major newspaper prints a blatant, damaging lie on the front page. You know exactly who to hold accountable. You sue the publisher, you fire the editor. The locus of control is clear.
Right.
But in 2026, let's say an AI news aggregator subtly distorts a major geopolitical event. It doesn't necessarily lie, but it selectively omits crucial historical context because the algorithm calculated that adding that context would reduce user engagement by 4%. Who do you hold accountable for that omission?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that is the structural nightmare of algorithmic news. The locus of control is entirely obscured. Is the omission the fault of the platform's CEO? Is it the fault of the mid-level engineer who tweaked the reward function 6 months ago? Is it a hidden bias in the massive corpus of training data?
Or the users themselves.
Exactly. And that is often the most uncomfortable truth. Is the AI simply acting as a perfect mirror, reflecting the fact that the platform's users consistently choose to click on simplified outrage rather than nuanced context? The responsibility is scattered across this vast, opaque network of humans, machines, and user feedback loops.
To play devil's advocate for a second,
Yeah.
one might argue that an AI is at least neutral. It doesn't have a political agenda or a vendetta. It just looks at the math. But the Dev Discourse paper completely dismantles the idea of algorithmic neutrality. They point to a phenomenon called mainstream reinforcement. Can you explain why AI aggregators actually make it harder for independent journalism to survive?
It comes down to the mechanics of how large language models determine authority. Because these AI models are trained on historical data sets spanning decades, they naturally inherit and amplify legacy power structures. If you ask a generative AI to curate reliable news on a complex topic, it doesn't have the human capability to independently verify a brilliant piece of investigative journalism published on a niche independent blog.
Because it doesn't have enough data points to prove that the independent journalist is trustworthy.
Exactly. The AI relies on volume and historical consensus. Therefore, it heavily promotes legacy mainstream outlets because those entities possess massive, historically validated data footprints. This creates an incredibly high, almost insurmountable barrier to entry. Independent voices, local journalism, alternative perspectives, they struggle to break through the algorithmic wall.
The AI just defaults to the giants.
Yes. In its pursuit of mathematical safety and authority, it inadvertently cements the status quo and starves independent media of oxygen.
Which means we are all being fed from the same massive, centralized troughs of information. But the algorithm is customizing which specific pieces of the trough we see based on what keeps us engaged. This reinforcement leads to a profound isolation. And I want to bring up a statistic from the security section of our research stack that genuinely made me stop reading and just stare at the wall.
The phishing data.
Yes. In 2026, cybersecurity data shows that social engineering attacks, things like sophisticated phishing scams, wire fraud, targeted manipulation, they now have a 340% higher success rate when they target individuals who are deeply embedded inside ideologically homogeneous echo chambers. A 340% increase in vulnerability. Why does our news feed dictate our susceptibility to getting scammed?
Because of a psychological vulnerability researchers term cognitive diversity collapse. When an AI gatekeeper feeds you a steady, unbroken diet of content that solely validates your pre-existing worldview, whether that's political, financial, or cultural, several things happen. First, your brain receives constant dopamine hits of validation.
Right, you feel like you're always right.
Exactly. But second, and more dangerously, you gradually lose the mental muscle required to evaluate information that challenges your assumptions. Your baseline level of skepticism erodes because you exist in an environment where everything you see feels inherently true to you.
You are basically marinating in confirmation bias. So when a hacker comes along, they don't just send a generic Nigerian prince email anymore. They tailor the scam to perfectly match the aesthetic, the vocabulary, and the specific grievances of your algorithmic echo chamber.
Precisely. Bad actors are actively weaponizing the AI's curation. If they can infiltrate a specific subculture's feed and present a fraudulent scheme that aligns with that group's manufactured reality, the targets are fundamentally primed to accept it without questioning it. Their cognitive defenses have been lowered by the very algorithm designed to keep them entertained.
And what makes this infinitely more terrifying is that these attacks aren't just text on a screen anymore. Because we were moving toward this voice-first world with tools like Siri 2.0, bad actors are weaponizing audio. The sources highlight a specific case study of a $25 million fraudulent wire transfer that was successfully executed using an AI-generated voice clone of a company executive.
It is the convergence of two distinct AI vectors. On one side, recommendation algorithms are isolating us, eroding our cognitive diversity and making us more trusting of our curated bubbles. On the other side, generative AI has advanced to the point where creating a hyper-realistic, emotionally nuanced voice clone requires only a few seconds of source audio.
And we just naturally trust voices.
We are biologically wired to trust the human voice. When we hear our boss, or a family member, or a trusted news anchor speaking, our natural skepticism drops significantly compared to reading an email.
I love the analogy you used in your notes for this section. It's like having an incredibly eager, hyper-attentive librarian who follows you around constantly. But instead of expanding your horizons, this librarian only feeds you books that either terrify you or perfectly validate your specific biases, just to ensure you never ever leave the library building.
It's a perfect encapsulation of the dynamic.
It keeps you reading, but it fundamentally warps your sense of the outside world. And the fascinating and, frankly, unsettling thing is that these exact same deep AI mechanics, this exact same behavioral mapping, is currently governing our entertainment. Let's pivot away from the news and look at how algorithmic gatekeeping has fundamentally altered music and podcasting, specifically looking at the 2026 data from Spotify and Apple.
If you want to understand the modern audio landscape, you have to realize that the metrics of success have undergone a complete paradigm shift. If you are an artist, a producer, a creator, the historical playbook was relatively simple. Accumulate as many raw play counts as possible. Get streams.
Just get people to click play.
Right. But according to the internal engineering papers from Spotify Research and the creator data from ArtistRack, raw play counts are effectively dead as a primary metric of algorithmic value. The new algorithmic currency is proof of engagement.
Okay, proof of engagement. Unpack that for me, because if I play a song, isn't that engagement?
Not to an AI in 2026. The algorithms have evolved to possess deep contextual awareness. They know the difference between you actively, passionately enjoying a piece of audio and that audio simply playing to an empty room while you wash the dishes. In fact, passive listening can now actively hurt a creator's algorithmic standing.
Wait, hold on. Passive listening hurts. So if I put on a 3-hour deep focus study playlist and just let it run in the background while I work, I am penalizing the artists on that playlist.
In a manner of speaking, yes. If a track plays and you do not interact with your device, you don't adjust the volume, you don't look at the screen, you don't navigate to the artist's profile, the algorithm categorizes that event. It says, this audio is functioning as background noise. It is not generating high-value user interaction.
Oh.
Contrast that with a scenario where you hear a track, unlock your phone, manually search for the artist's discography, and hit the save button to add it to your personal library. The ArtistRack data reveals that a manual save now carries roughly 100 times more algorithmic weight than a passive stream.
100 times. That is a massive multiplier. So the algorithm isn't looking for listeners, it is hunting for fans. It wants behavioral proof that the audio caused a physical action. But how does the AI actually use that saved data? The Spotify research paper gets incredibly dense here, talking about their LLM-based agentic systems and something called a preference tuning flywheel. Can we break down how Spotify's AI actually decides what to play next?
We can break it down into 4 distinct stages of their agentic orchestration: generate, score, sample, and fine-tune. Think of the Spotify AI not as a static algorithm, but as an active predictive agent. When you finish a song, the AI doesn't just grab the next most popular track. Stage 1 is generate. The AI rapidly simulates multiple different branching playlist scenarios. It says, if I play song A next, what is the probable user reaction? What if I play song B?
It's playing chess with my music tastes.
Yeah.
It's looking 3 moves ahead.
Exactly. Then comes stage 2, score. This is where reward models come in. The AI uses historical data to assign a mathematical score to each simulated path based on what it predicts will drive long-term user satisfaction and retention. Stage 3 is sample. The AI selects the highest scoring path and actually plays the song for you.
And the final stage, fine-tune, is where it checks its math against my actual behavior, right?
Yeah.
Did I skip it or did I save it?
Yes. This utilizes a machine learning technique called direct preference optimization, or DPO. The AI compares its simulated prediction against your literal human feedback. If it predicted you would love the track, but you hit skip after 10 seconds, the AI registers a massive penalty. It immediately adjusts its internal parameters. It is a continuous microscopic loop of hypothesis and validation.
And does it actually work?
The results of this architecture are undeniable. By optimizing for genuine human preference via DPO rather than just raw historical click-through rates, Spotify's engineering team reported a 4% increase in overall listening time across the platform, and a staggering 70% reduction in what they call erroneous tool calls within their AI orchestration layer. The machine is becoming terrifyingly precise at predicting human desire.
And it gets even more granular than just looking at my user data. The AI isn't just looking at the metadata, like the genre tag or the release year. According to the research, the AI is literally listening to the audio files. They use high-resolution spectral analysis to deconstruct the actual waveform of the track. It analyzes the tempo, the timbre, the harmonic key, the dynamic range. It compiles all of this into what is known as a sonic signature.
The AI possesses an auditory understanding of the music that rivals and in some ways exceeds human categorization. It understands the complex mathematical distinctions between a lo-fi track optimized for a Sunday morning coffee vibe and a dark ambient track suited for a 3 a.m. existential crisis.
Which is incredible technology, but it presents a brutal reality for creators. The Artist Rack Guide has a massive warning for independent musicians in 2026. Do not genre hop on the same profile. I have to play devil's advocate here. What if I'm a creative genius? What if I want to release a beautiful acoustic folk ballad one week and a high-energy 140 BPM techno track the next? Doesn't this AI system actively kill artistic versatility?
From an algorithmic perspective, yes. It heavily penalizes it. If you release wildly divergent styles under the same artist profile, you completely scramble your sonic signature. The agentic AI relies on consistency to safely deploy your audio to the right listeners. If your data is contradictory, the AI becomes confused about who your target demographic actually is.
And algorithms hate confusion.
In the world of machine learning, confusion equals risk. The AI will simply stop recommending your profile entirely and opt for an artist whose sonic signature is predictable and easily categorizable. You have to maintain a cohesive sonic environment.
And you have to capture them instantly. Both the Spotify and the podcasting sources outline this brutal 30-second skip rate penalty. If a listener clicks on your track or your podcast episode and then hits skip within the first 30 seconds, the AI flags that interaction as a massive negative preference signal. The days of the long, atmospheric, 1-minute instrumental intro are completely over if you want algorithmic growth. You have to put the hook right at the front door.
What's fascinating here is how this contrasts with Apple. While Spotify is executing high-resolution spectral analysis, Apple is dealing with its own unique set of algorithmic headaches.
Yes, Apple Music's Discovery Station. They have a slightly different philosophical approach to machine-led curation, and it has resulted in a highly relatable 2026 cultural phenomenon known as algorithm poisoning.
It really is a modern plague.
I love this part of the research because it is so incredibly human. Explain algorithm poisoning.
Apple's Discovery Station relies exceptionally heavily on your immediate, short-term listening history to dynamically predict your current mood and tastes. This makes it very responsive, but also incredibly fragile. A single, anomalous listening session can completely devastate your personalized recommendations.
This is what the papers call the nursery rhyme problem. Let's say it's a Saturday morning, you're exhausted, and you hand your iPad to your toddler. The toddler proceeds to play Baby Shark, or the Encanto soundtrack, or some repetitive nursery rhyme on a loop for 45 minutes. Because the AI lacks human common sense, it cannot contextualize why this audio is playing.
Right, it doesn't know there's a toddler in the room.
It only registers the data that it is playing and that the engagement is exceptionally high. Suddenly, your Apple Music algorithm is completely poisoned. For the next 3 weeks, every time you try to discover new indie rock, the AI cheerfully suggests toddler music.
It became such a widespread, frustrating issue for users that Apple was forced to alter their interface and introduce manual use listening history toggles. They had to give users a manual override switch to essentially say to the AI, I am about to hand my phone to a child. Please ignore all data generated for the next hour. It highlights a profound limitation of these systems. They are mathematically brilliant, but contextually blind.
Which is the perfect transition.
Yeah.
Because if audio algorithms are that fragile, and if they can be thrown entirely off course by a toddler playing Baby Shark, how does a creator actually guarantee they get discovered? The irony of 2026 is that the secret to audio discovery is not audio.
No, it's not.
To truly master the podcasting and audio ecosystem, you have to master text and video, which brings us to the multi-platform podcasting system.
Let's contextualize this with the macro data. The Infinite Dial 2025 report from Edison Research shows that 73% of Americans actively consume podcasts. It is a dominant medium. But the most revealing statistic is where they're consuming them. The #1 destination for podcast consumption is no longer Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It is YouTube. YouTube currently boasts over 1 billion monthly active viewers consuming podcast content.
I feel like we need to redefine what a podcast even is at this point. It's no longer just an RSS feed silently pushing an MP3 file to an app on your phone while you jog. Podcasting is a massive, visual, multi-platform content ecosystem. And the dominance of YouTube forces a complete strategic shift because it introduces video-first SEO mechanics into an audio world. But the Spearpoint marketing research points out an even deeper irony regarding how AI handles all this media.
The core limitation of artificial intelligence, even in 2026, is that it cannot natively hear audio or watch video in the same rapid, deeply semantic way that it parses text. Text is the native language of the large language model. Therefore, despite all the advancements in audio streaming and video resolution, transcripts have become the absolute, non-negotiable foundation of all modern digital discovery.
Let me make sure I understand the gravity of this. If I record the most brilliant, insightful 60-minute audio interview in the world, but I don't publish a text transcript alongside it, what happens?
From the perspective of the broader AI ecosystem, Siri 2.0, ChatGPT, Google AI overviews, your interview functionally does not exist. It is locked inside an opaque audio container. The Spearpoint strategies emphasize that leveraging AI transcription tools is no longer optional. Tools like Riverside now offer 99% AI transcription accuracy. That transcript is not just for accessibility, it is the structural infrastructure of your content.
Because the transcript unlocks the long-tail keywords. It gives Apple's text-heavy podcast search algorithm something to index. And tying it back to our earlier point about Project Campos, that transcript provides the exact, explicitly clear data set that Apple Foundation models require to generate those flawless Siri 2.0 audio summaries. If you don't give the machine the text, the machine ignores you.
Precisely. And this heavy reliance on text generation and multi-platform distribution has birthed a grueling operational standard that marketers and creators call the repurposing loop.
Just reading about the repurposing loop in the outline made me exhausted.
Well,
Walk us through what a modern 2026 creator workflow actually looks like for a single episode.
it requires immense operational velocity. A creator records a 1-hour video podcast. Immediately upon wrapping, they must utilize AI tools to generate and publish a highly accurate transcript and structured, time-stamped show notes. Next, they feed that video into another AI tool to automatically extract, crop, and subtitle 3 to 8 short-form vertical video clips optimized for the specific algorithms of TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and Instagram Reels.
It's a whole assembly line.
It really is. And finally, they must synthesize the core arguments of the transcript into an SEO-optimized written blog post to feed the Google generative engine. The initial recording is merely the raw material. The true work is the algorithmic distribution.
It is an industrial-scale operation just to cast a wide enough net to catch the AI's attention. But our sources also highlight a very harsh, sobering reality regarding this system, particularly for independent creators who don't have massive teams behind them. Let's say a user opens up ChatGPT or asks Siri, what are the best podcasts right now about the history of the Roman Empire? Recommend a highly rated comedy podcast. The AI almost never recommends a brilliant up-and-coming indie show. It almost exclusively regurgitates recommendations for massive, established network giants like Joe Rogan, The Daily, Call Her Daddy. Why is the AI so biased toward the giants?
It goes back to the concept of mainstream reinforcement we discussed with the news algorithms applied to entertainment. It is a problem of dataset surface area. Independent creators simply lack the massive historical digital footprint required to be statistically recognized by a large language model as an authoritative answer.
Because the AI equates volume of data with quality of content.
Exactly. The giants of the podcasting industry have been operating for a decade. They have millions backlinks, hundreds of thousands of social media mentions, Wikipedia pages, and endless transcripts scattered across the entire web. When the AI model is trained, it ingests that massive volume of data and mathematically correlates it with authority and relevance.
In the indie creator,
An indie creator, even if their audio quality is superior and their historical research is more accurate, is relegated to the kids' table in AI recommendations simply because they do not produce enough digital exhaust for the machine learning models to notice them. They're mathematically insignificant to the AI.
here's where it gets really interesting. It paints a very daunting, almost dystopian landscape for anyone trying to build an audience from scratch. You have to feed the repurposing loop perfectly, maintain your sonic signature, and somehow generate enough data to prove you exist. But it's not just podcasters, musicians, and journalists running this gauntlet. Multi-million-dollar businesses and seasoned marketers are navigating this exact same AI minefield, trying to reach consumers. Let's shift gears and look at the 2026 marketing blueprints from Vertical Response and podcastvideos.com. Because despite all this talk about generative AI, neural networks, and multi-platform video algorithms, there's one communication channel that still absolutely dominates the return on investment metrics.
Email. It is one of the great ironies of digital marketing. Despite the endless technological revolutions happening on the web, email remains the undisputed king of direct communication. The vertical response data shows that email marketing consistently delivers a $42 to $45 return on investment for every single dollar spent. It outperforms social media advertising by orders of magnitude.
But the inbox of 2026 is not the inbox of 2016. Gone are the days when you could just blast out an email with a catchy subject line, make sure you didn't use the word every E in all caps, and assume it would land in the primary tab. The platforms, Gmail, Apple Mail, Outlook, they have deployed what the sources call intelligent inboxes. And these things are ruthless.
They are highly sophisticated behavioral algorithms. Intelligent inboxes do not just filter for obvious spam keywords or malicious links, they track incredibly deep microscopic behavioral signals from your audience. They know your average scroll depth. They measure exactly how far down the email the average user actually reads before closing it. They track quick deletions. Does a user frequently swipe to delete your email within 3 seconds of opening it without clicking anything?
So if I send a weekly newsletter and my audience gets in the habit of just swiping it away without reading it, the intelligent inbox takes note of that.
Yes. And if those negative behavioral signals compound over time, the intelligent inbox will quietly, invisibly reroute all your future emails straight to the spam folder or the promotions tab for the entire network. You won't receive a notification, your open rates will simply plummet, and you will be algorithmically shadow banned from the inbox.
And that's assuming you even make it to the sorting phase. The vertical response data makes it incredibly clear that before you even worry about scroll depth or subject lines, you have to pass the brutal privacy-first infrastructure checks. Now, earlier I called this alphabet soup, so I'm going to need you to translate again. The sources say that in 2026, if you do not have properly configured SPF, DKNMOS records, you are dead in the water. What are these things, and why do they matter so much?
Let's use the analogy of a high-security corporate building. If an email arrives at a Gmail server claiming to be from your company, the server doesn't just trust the name on the envelope. SPF, which is Sender Policy Framework, DKIM, Domain Keys Identified Mail, and DMRC, Domain-Based Message Authentication, Reporting, and Conformance. They act as a series of cryptographic digital passports and wax seals.
Okay.
They mathematically prove to the receiving server that the email originated from an authorized IP address, that the content was not tampered with in transit, and that it genuinely belongs to your domain.
So it's a multi-layered security checkpoint to stop impersonation and phishing.
Precisely. Furthermore, the blueprint emphasizes the necessity of BIMI, brand indicators for message identification. If you successfully configure the previous 3 protocols, BIMI allows your verified, trademarked brand logo to visually appear next to your email in the user's inbox list. It is the ultimate visual trust signal. In 2026, without these cryptographic protocols actively verifying your identity, modern email servers will simply reject your messages at the perimeter. Trust signals must precede marketing technology.
So let's say a business does everything right. They have their DMR set configured, their BIMI logo is shining, and they bypass the intelligent inbox behavioral filters. How do they actually engage consumer who's already overwhelmed by AI-generated content? The old method was the batch and blast, writing a generic newsletter and sending it to 100,000 people on a Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. The new method outlined in the sources is micro-moment automation. Walk us through the SaaS usage limit example from the research, because I thought this was a brilliant execution of modern marketing.
Micro-moment automation abandons the concept of bulk sending entirely. It relies on instantaneous, highly personalized communication triggered by a user's specific action in the real world. In the SaaS example, imagine a user is utilizing a cloud software platform and they hit their monthly data limit. They experience a moment of friction. Within 60 seconds of hitting that wall, the automation system fires an email.
Right, when they're feeling the pain point.
Exactly. But it is not a generic upgrade now text email. It contains a personalized, dynamically generated video that specifically addresses the feature they were trying to use, explains the value of upgrading, and includes a one-click embedded meeting scheduler to instantly connect with an account executive.
It addresses the exact problem at the exact millisecond the user is experiencing it. That is incredibly effective. But to execute that level of hyper-personalization, the system needs an enormous amount of data about the user. With the final death of third-party tracking cookies, marketers can no longer just quietly scrape that data as users browse the web. Where's the data coming from?
It has to come directly from the consumer. This brings us to the critical, foundational value of zero-party data. Zero-party data is information that a customer willingly, intentionally, and proactively hands over to a brand. This is gathered through interactive onboarding quizzes, highly detailed preference centers, or gamified surveys.
Why would a user voluntarily give a company a detailed map of their preferences? We spend so much time talking about privacy.
Because the consumer in 2026 is acutely aware that algorithms govern their digital lives. They know that if they don't explicitly state what they want, the AI will guess, and it will often guess poorly. Users are increasingly willing to trade their specific data. Things like, I am a vegetarian, I prefer high-intensity workouts, and I only want emails on Fridays. They trade that in exchange for a highly tailored, relevant experience that cuts through the frustrating algorithmic noise. They are giving the brand the map to bypass the gatekeepers.
They are essentially opting into a microalgorithm curated by a brand they trust, rather than the macro algorithm of Google or Apple. And speaking of cutting through the noise and establishing trust, I want to end our deep dive by highlighting what I think is the most fascinating, counterintuitive, and frankly hopeful trend in the entire research stack. It comes from the video marketing data at podcastvideos.com. You would assume that in 2026, with incredibly advanced production tools available to everyone, brands would be pushing for flawless cinematic 4K video production. But the data shows the exact opposite. Lo-fi, unpolished, slightly messy video content is consistently outperforming high-end production. Why?
Because we have reached an inflection point regarding synthetic media. Overly polished, flawless content now triggers an immediate subconscious alarm in the consumer's mind. They see it and think, this looks exactly like AI. We are witnessing the rise of the authenticity mandate.
I absolutely love that term, the authenticity mandate.
Users have developed a profound, acute allergy to the frictionless, pathetic perfection of generative AI. They are drowning in infinite seas of perfectly grammar-checked blogs, flawless deepfake models, and artificially smooth video generation. Because perfection is now free and instantly generated, perfection has lost all its cultural and commercial value. Consumers are actively, hungrily seeking out visible human flaws.
The flaws are the feature, not the bug. A slight stutter in a podcast recording, a camera bump, a messy desk in the background of a corporate video, an audible breath before a sentence. These are no longer production errors. They have become critical trust signals. They are the cryptographic proof that a biological human being with a pulse is on the other side of the screen.
The marketing research ties this directly back to Google's foundational algorithm guidelines, known as EEAT. Experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. EEAT is how Google decides what content is valuable. In a digital environment where anyone can prompt an AI to write a 5,000-word authoritative essay on quantum physics in 10 seconds, the only way to genuinely demonstrate the experience and trustworthiness variables is to boldly showcase your humanity.
Which is why the vertical response data notes that having the specific phrase written by a human or produced by humans has literally become a premium marketing differentiator in 2026. We are seeing major B2B software companies ditching their sleek corporate videos and instead having their engineers record shaky iPhone videos explaining how they fixed a massive server crash. They are opening up about their failures. They are leaning heavily into hyper-niche, slightly absurd meme culture. They are doing everything they can to prove they aren't machines.
It perfectly encapsulates the central tension of our current digital era. It is a profound paradox. On one hand, to even be visible in 2026, we are forced to build incredibly sophisticated, rigid, data-driven infrastructures to appease the AI gatekeepers. We must structure our data with precise schema markup. We must meticulously manage zero-party data platforms. We must implement complex agentic orchestration and adhere to strict technical cryptographic protocols like DM, ERS, and BUMI. The pipes must be flawless.
But the water flowing through those pipes has to be muddy.
Exactly. The actual content we deliver through those hyper-sophisticated pipes must be as raw, unpolished, vulnerable, and unmistakably human as possible to actually resonate with the end user and build trust.
So let's bring this all together. What does this massive paradigm shift mean for you, the learner, as you navigate your day-to-day digital life? We have covered an immense amount of ground in this deep dive. We started with the absolute death of the blue link, transitioning into a world where 60% of searches are zero-click, requiring generative engine optimization just to exist in the answer economy. We examined the societal impact of AI replacing human news editors, bringing the very real threats of asymmetric gatekeeping, cognitive diversity collapse, and the weaponization of echo chambers by bad actors. We decoded the complex, unforgiving math of audio algorithms, exploring Spotify's preference tuning flywheels, the immense value of a save, the reality of sonic signatures, and the fragile hilarity of Apple's algorithm poisoning. We look at the exhausting reality of the multi-platform podcasting repurposing loop and the critical infrastructure of transcripts. And finally, we explore the front line of 2026 marketing. Intelligent inboxes, zero-party data, and the absolute uncompromising necessity of lo-fi human authenticity.
This raises an important question, perhaps the most critical question we must ask ourselves moving forward. We have detailed the exhaustive, highly technical lengths to which creators, journalists, businesses, and everyday users must go to optimize the digital output for these AI systems. We have to structure our data perfectly, we have to maintain cohesive sonic signatures, we have to craft our sentences to be easily parsed by large language models, but in our desperate rush to appease the algorithmic gatekeepers, we must remain vigilant that we do not systematically strip away the very humanity that makes our communication valuable in the first place. The human moat, our lived, visceral experiences, our unique, unpredictable perspectives, and yes, our visible, messy flaws that is our greatest, most unreplicable asset against the rising tide of synthetic generated content. The rule for survival in 2026 is clear. We must optimize the structure for the machines to be found, but we must optimize the content for humanity to be felt.
Optimize the structure for the machines. Optimize the content for humanity. That is the defining balance of our time. And that brings me to a final, slightly provocative thought I want to leave you with today. It's something I want you to genuinely mull over the next time you open a streaming app, or ask your digital assistant to summarize an article, or see an uncannily relevant advertisement hit your intelligent inbox. If these massive, incredibly complex AI algorithms are constantly, relentlessly learning from our behaviors, tracking what we save, analyzing what we share, measuring the milliseconds before we skip, and cataloging how deeply we scroll, and simultaneously, we as creators and consumers are constantly adapting our own behaviors, our artistic output, and our marketing strategies to appease and manipulate those exact same AI algorithms. Who is actually leading the dance? Are we successfully training the artificial intelligence to serve us better? Or, in our pursuit of visibility and convenience, has the artificial intelligence already successfully trained us to behave exactly how it wants? Thank you so much for joining us and dedicating your time to this deep dive into the 2026 digital ecosystem. Keep asking the hard questions, stay curious about the systems that surround you, and above all else, keep seeking out genuine, unpolished human connection in our increasingly algorithmic world. We will catch you on the next deep dive.